What's not obvious is the diversity of the people, first of all, but also the diversity of the landscapes, from a basically tropical, full of water south to a desert. This is one thing. The other thing is also the depth of history. It's easy to hear that, yes, there are more pyramids in Sudan than in Egypt, but you really have to ask people and to read up in order to understand, if you're not a specialist of this history, in order to understand what this actually represents here. And it's not just the place we are here now at. Simply one of the great civilizations of this world, which has conquered and defended and conquered again and lost and conquered again big swaths of the antique world, and who has measured itself against the other big civilizations at the time. And somehow there is no way this cannot have an impact until today. And I think that's part of what you feel simply if you walk around. But you need to dig a little bit, or to travel a little bit to places where hardly ever anybody comes to, like the one we are here. The heart of an ancient super kingdom. In Sudan, you can walk in Khartoum at night, you can sit down anywhere, drink coffee or a tea, and nobody will bother. Not because they ignore you or they disrespect you, but they don't bother. You're just part of being there, and that's fine for everybody. It's this incredibly generous, open-hearted atmosphere of people who are just incredibly nice. I have not seen that anywhere else. And it's something I personally have the impression nobody knows who has not been to Sudan. You really have to be here to understand what it means to encounter people who are so at ease with themselves and that they can be so generous with everybody else. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. We have seen over recent decades a brutal civil war in the south, which has led to the split up of the country in two. Then everybody is aware of Darfur, with untold suffering. And we are still in a situation where you have, both in Darfur, ongoing remnants of this big conflict. It's smaller now, but it's still there. And where you have, in the south of Sudan, in two states, Blue Nile and South Kordofan particularly, where you have a combination of displacement, refugees, and ongoing fighting, which continues to affect tens and hundreds of thousands of people in this country. Yes, we are assisting with food. Yes, we're assisting with health or education or bringing families back together. But in the end, it's about the dignity of the people. Where you see it maybe most, in the work we're doing here in Sudan, most immediately, is when somebody who cannot walk anymore because he or she lost a leg is then suddenly able to lead a normal life because this limb has been artificially replaced. And it's not artificial dignity, it's real dignity, but through an artificial means. So this giving back some self-respect to people who have gone through the worst in life is something which makes you get up in the morning and want to do more of that. What gives me, in the end, the biggest joy is to be able to make a difference for individuals, for an individual human being who is affected by a horrible environment. Yes, we do work for numbers, but in the end, you look at the difference you can make to one person and to these many one persons.
We can't talk about education reform if we don't decolonize our education system.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize. Because it's just cultural. And I think it's just human nature.
They stop paying us salary. I don't like remembering it.
I am angry at Nigeria. I'm angry at this government which seems to be letting us down. I'm angry at us as a people.
In the process of struggling to free myself from his hand, he tore my pants and he raped me.
Yes, I commit offense truly.
Young girl, do you know where you are going? I say, I'm going to America. I say, now so that they talk, you are going to Libya. Which America?
As it then do mark our place, some people they die now.
This is Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
أنا ما اللي أري إن خير إسحاق يلي أري بلتين سعادة راسان وحضور أكد لا دير هي حضور أها نتاك كوري muddo badan aan tahay roogi iskoolaha ku dhakaday belitan haddii aan warbixin kooban siin ku sii degmada xudur waxyaabo ma jare iyo caanka ah tanibada caanka ah taasoo oo soo jireen macnaha muddo badan iyo hahayti dad oo ammaanada ka fayl waaye beerajo beeraley waaye dadka beeraley boqolkiiba boqol beeraley lan hoolan qabnee beer qab wal argeen laakiin lan beeran qabna sidiisba ma jira beera ka noolin بلتين ما عنك إيه قالة حولها مدلة قالة عنك إيه قالة إيد مين في شغل أنك هرمر سنين لين كتلاقة إرنكها هكيجة لو ذا أنك ير ما يكله لكتلاقة شنيل لكتلاقة ودن كان مالبك يسين باركتين أو كونفورتين يوغوي ميلول بلوكو استعماله أو فياو أركتين ودن كان الله كساره waddankan isgaaraasan xudurin isgaaraasan burburkii dhibaatooyin badan la kulmi khaasatan dadka oo dhibaatooyin kulmiya kumadhaay anna dawladda intii aan burburneeba dagaalada sokeynay bilowday daduna min sheegdo Soomaali oo oraad weligaanayn dhamar dad soo deginyi daris aan hasta korni ilma adeer dad iyo in oo una markii hore Soomaali la haysanay walaalhayni macnaha isquracdaan isla qadayani ehelsho madihan weerareen qabiil hanin weerareen maalintaas ay ka dhabadanay oo beledkii aan ka dhaladay ku roori loo duqdi agag lagay la balaqaysadii alaabtay la qaaday gurigay la gubi waxyaabahaas tan ay ka yaab badanaay macnaha dabaatadii ninka humaytayna taas haytay xilligaasana martay walla ama baan lahayna haroogni marka mucjizooyinkaas isku jareen rabbaani kullina hadee may ka cabaraan dunuub oo hor an galni madaas bacda intii dhabka ninka dhinu ku hor una galni leyninu gooyay macnaha xaaladda hudur hadda eedaan faylata waqtigii hadda waqtiyaan saniyaan dhow waqti ninku faylaba ma jira waddankan dayuuro ma kooy jirna dayuurad oo dawladda lata amase hay-adda lata marmar kooy jireen dayuurad bareefad ee la heliyo dayuuriha ka adeegdo hayno ilaa hadda intii oo ka nagdeen qof oo dhab laka deersiye mase laka dili ma jira oo macnaha ammaan humo ku dhiidi male marka alxamdulilah xilligan eedaan faylay walba problema ma jiraan eedaan faylay xilligan
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect am.
If you no talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
I think the Lost Boys was crafted, I think, somewhere in Russia, if I recall it well, in history. Okay, and we had the same similarities, where almost more than 90% of the population that went to Panyundo were all boys, and they had one thing in common: running away from the danger. As the war began in 1983, and that war reaches almost the community in all South Sudan. And in 1987, I became one of the Lost Boys that was displaced by the war. When it reached, we were about 1,000 Lost Boys that left from the area. We had a track until we reached Ethiopia in 1987. It was actually one of the first painful experience that I had because as a young boy, could be between 9 and 12 years old, because not knowing my exact age, we had a lot of problems on the way, and one of the problems was starvation, as you can imagine, water, was a big, and wild animals on the way. We left again in '92 until we reached a place called Nairus, which is very near to Capoeira. We stayed for a few months. Then UNHCR took us to Kakuma, and that's where I was registered as a refugee in Kakuma in 1992. There was a refugee settlement that was meant only for lost boys, and that started in 1998. And I had my toughest decision that I had to make, because at that time it was about 10 years or 11 years not knowing where my relatives are, and I was thinking, do I have to take a decision to go to America where I don't know how our people, maybe are they all dead or what had happened? So I decided to go to America, and in 2001 on April 8th I left Kakuma. Then I reached in Atlanta, Georgia, April 10th, 2001. And that decision was really a best decision that I ever made, because I've been writing a lot of RCM, the Red Cross messages, to my relatives, and there's no reply. From, I think I started in '94 until 2001. I couldn't get any reply at all. And I was thinking, maybe there's nobody that's alive. And therefore I decided, okay, I have to go to America. The life is different, food's different. And I remember when I was with my American friends, they have different foods. And also it was tough even for us to get enrolled into universities and colleges. When I earn $1, I have to find out my parents. And I happened to talk with my brother for the first time in 2004. I was relieved. I was totally relieved. And I could know who is dead, I could know who is alive, I could know, and I was relieved then. So after independence of South Sudan in 2011, I decided, I thought, we have a country that we can all build together. And then I came here. Then when the war, the crisis started in December 15, 2013, I had to be evacuated. And I remember they were telling me to go to Nairobi. I said, no, I'm not going to Nairobi. I will go to Ganyel. I think I was unemployed for about 7 months, 8 months. And then I finally get a job with ICRC in June of last year. We are doing a medical evacuation today, leaving Ganyel to Nyal, which is north of here, about 25 minutes or 30 minutes flight. So unfortunately, some cattle raiders came and attacked a village and took cattle, about 110 cattle, head of cattle, according to the local source. They have killed 2 people and wounded 4. Now we are going to evacuate a woman and a 3-year-old girl from Nyal, because there is no good medical facility in Nyal, so we are evacuating them to Ganyel for a better treatment, operations, and then we'll also bring a caretaker together with that child. it's not me alone that decided to come back home. We had a lot of us that came back home that are even working either with the government or with the NGOs, or that are doing their private work as well. Unfortunately, we were all hoping to come home and build a home together. But some of us, most of us that did came, went back to America. And I'm one of the few that decided to stay, because I was thinking it's not the right time for me to leave, because when your people are in danger, why would you have to go back? I'm always hopeful and optimistic that things will be better, because this is the country that we all loved. This is our land, and we lost boys that have seen it all, and we want to have a better future. We have our country have a better future, and this is the hope that we are always praying for, so that this country can be better for all of us.
Is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria?
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Vicky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Many thanks for joining us on the news on Plus TV Africa. I am Justin Akadonye. President Muhammadu Buhari has urged Nigerians, especially the elite, to be fair in their criticism of his administration. President Buhari said this when he received the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Christian Pilgrims Commission, Yakubu Palm. The President commended the Executive Secretary on his appointment and activities on peace building, assuring him that the government is open to listen to their contributions. Earlier, Reverend Palm spoke on some of the activities of the Commission since he was appointed in July 2020. Meantime, the Christian Association of Nigeria has cautioned those threatening the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto, Matthew Kuka, to stop immediately. It had also asked the security agencies to ensure the safety and security of the cleric. The organization made this known in a press statement by its General Secretary, Joseph Daramola, on Thursday. A Sokoto-based group had asked Kuka to vacate the state or tender an apology over his comment on Islam. The Christian body said Bishop Kuka was posted to serve in Sokoto by the papacy, and threatening him to leave is a global threat to Christianity. A non-teaching staff of the Federal University of Technology, Owerri Futo, have concluded a 3-day nationwide protest. The protest was as a fallout of the controversial Integrated Personal and Payment or Payroll Information System (IPS) and sharing formula of the 40 billion earned academic allowances. Futo NASU chairman Sam Iwala lamented that the federal government had refused to address the protesting university workers in the past 3 days. He said the unions would take a decision on Monday and might shut down the federal capital territory if the federal government went ahead to ignore their demands. The defense headquarters says 64 insurgents have been killed by troops in Yobe State in 1 week during an encounter. The DHQ spokesman, Major General John Enenche, said the insurgents met their Waterloo at Gujba local government area of the state and Gonankaji village along Damaturu Boniyadi Road during firefights with the troops. Major General Enenche said firearms, ammunition, and 10 gun trucks were also recovered from the terrorists. He added that the troop of Operation Lafia Dole also dealt with some militants at the enclaves between Goniri and Gorgi in Gujba and Damaturu local government areas of Yobe and Borno State. Now, the improper disposal of waste has become an environmental and health hazard globally. To combat this, statewide Waste and Environmental Education Foundation SWIP has organized a plastic pickup program where they educated Nigerians on proper disposal. Our correspondent Jacinta Obioku reports.
As human population increases, so does the demand for plastic. But the challenge here is its indiscriminate disposal, which is now a major environmental burden. This group believe the problem can be tackled by creating more awareness and conducting exercises like this.
It is not enough to say that you didn't throw it into the canals. If you throw it off your car window, the wind will push it into the canals, and it will clog the canals. It will lead to flooding. It will, when the gutters are clogged, the water is stagnant. When the water is stagnant, it will breed mosquitoes, and when it breeds mosquitoes, we will have malaria. People need to understand this. Our lifestyle currently, our attitudes to the environment is very poor.
A clean environment is a clean lifestyle. If we have a clean environment, we won't have to spend money going to the hospital.
They call on Nigerians to consider the practice of waste recycling to create other products and generate income while cleaning up the environment.
People will see it as being downgrading, but I tell you, debt is wealth. People would see it as it being dirty, but the fact is there is money in it.
What we are doing has both social impact and economic impact. Recycling is the new business.
According to a plastic population fact figures, every day, approximately 8 million pieces of plastic pollution find their way into our oceans. It is imperative for attitude to change towards the inappropriate usage and disposal of plastic materials in ensuring a healthy environment. Jacinta Obuku for Plus TV Africa.
In health news now, in a proactive move to prepare for the planned COVID-19 vaccines promised by the federal government, Ekiti State has acquired 187 solar-powered cold chain refrigerators for vaccine storage for 8 primary health care centers in the 177 wards of the state. Governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, who commissioned the 187 solar direct drive cold chain equipment, which will help in the storage of vaccines, said the facilities are delivered ahead of COVID-19 vaccines and also expected to enhance immunization activities towards curbing preventable deaths and improve neonatal and infant and maternal health indices.
You would recall our proactive efforts in the preparedness and containment of COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 through our various collaborations and investments in health infrastructure that included but not limited to procurement of the modular laboratory for COVID-19 and other infectious diseases testing, renovation of 1 secondary, the General Hospital in Ayede Ekiti, and 20 primary health facilities with more still in the waiting list, and the upgrading and equipping of Obadejugbe General Hospital, which serves as our infectious disease hospital, for our people, for the containment of all infectious diseases. All these are to ensure that our people are safe from untimely and avoidable death from infectious diseases.
And in other parts of Africa now, vote counting has begun in Uganda after an election marked by delays led to chaotic scenes, extensions and arrests. Ugandans voted in an election that pitted Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, who has been in power for the last 30 years, against 7 other candidates. Electoral Commission Chairman Badru Kigundo, said due to delays polling in 36 locations in the Ugandan capital, Kampala, and Wakiso district will be held Friday starting from 7 a.m. till 4 p.m. Election results are expected to be released on Saturday evening. Now, the Republic of Congo's Electoral Commission says the presidential election will take place on March 21. It further confirmed that the Defense and Security Forces will vote on March 17, allowing the army and police to devote themselves to securing the voting process. Now, this is the first time that voters will go to the polls in 2 phases since the first multi-party presidential election in 1992. The announcement comes as the voter verification process is ongoing to determine the final number of voters for the upcoming poll. Outside Africa, Europe's top human rights court agreed on Thursday to look into Ukraine's complaint against alleged human rights violations in the Russian-annexed Crimean Peninsula. The Strasbourg-based European Court of Human Rights, or ECHR, concluded that Ukraine's case against Russia is backed by sufficient evidence and admissible for consideration. It was not clear when the court would deliver a verdict. Ukraine has argued in its complaint that Russia was responsible for a variety of human rights violations in the Black Sea Peninsula. Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea hasn't been recognized by a vast majority of nations and drew US and EU sanctions against Moscow. Moscow has charged that it rightfully took over Crimea after an overwhelming majority of local residents voted to secede from Ukraine and join Russia in a referendum. It has continuously rejected accusations of human rights violations in the region. The ECHR ruled after examining Ukraine's complaint that it provided sufficient evidence of human rights violations for the courts to consider the case. The court noted, however, that some of the Ukrainian allegations, including its claim that Russia was responsible for killings and shootings in the region, were not properly backed by evidence. Russia's Justice Ministry quickly issued a statement outpointing that pronouncement by the court. Talking business now. The National Bureau of Statistics says as at the third quarter of last year, Nigeria's total debt stood at 32.22 trillion naira. The NBS, in a report titled Nigerian Domestic and Foreign Debt Third Quarter 2020, explained that further disaggregation of Nigeria's foreign debt showed that $16.74 billion of the debt was multilateral, $502.38 million was bilateral, and another $3.26 billion bilateral from the Exim Bank of China, JICA, India, and KfW, while $11.17 billion was commercial, which are Eurobonds and diaspora bonds. The NBS said Nigerian state and federal debt stock data as of the 30th of September last year reflected that the country's total public debt portfolio stood at 32.22 trillion naira. Now, Nigeria's total public debt showed that 12.19 trillion naira, or 37.82% of the debt, was external, while 20.04 trillion naira, representing 62.18% of the debt, was domestic. The document said the domestic debt stock as at September last year was totally 13.9 trillion naira. And in entertainment news, former Big Brother Naija housemate Cindy Okafor has survived a motor accident which occurred on Wednesday. The former housemate, who took to her Instagram account to share her encounter, said the accident happened on the same day she turned 25. According to her, she was driving home after a birthday dinner with some friends in her car when they had the accident. She also revealed that the collision was so strong that the airbags in her car came out. And on sports news now, Aston Villa's home match against Everton on Sunday has been postponed due to the COVID-19 outbreak at the Midlands club. The Premier League said on Thursday that following the rescheduling of Villa's fixture against Tottenham Hotspur, which was due to be played last night, a significant number of players and staff remained in isolation. As a result, the Premier League board has agreed to Aston Villa's request to postpone their match on Sunday. Newcastle United's postponed game at Villa has been rescheduled for January the 23rd. The fixture, which was due to take place at Villa Park on December 4, was called off due to a COVID-19 outbreak at Newcastle's training centre. And that's the news at the ZAR. For more updates, please follow us at Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa. We'll be back again at 9:30 with more stories. I am Justin Akadonye. Many thanks for watching.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
It's been an unusual year for us all. We've been forced to learn to adapt to the changes that COVID-19 has brought upon us. However the cards may have been dealt to us this year, we have remained resilient. The Afrima Fashion Show stems from the Afrima Award Show, which is the biggest African award show in the diaspora. Every year, we have showcased designers and we bring together people from all over the world. This year, the Afrima Runway is graced by the top 3 African designers who have welcomed the challenge of doing a virtual runway show without any physical audience. Don Murphy, Ese Ezanabo, and lastly, Sai Sanko. Let the show begin.
Hi guys, my name is Sai Sankar and I am a luxury resort wear designer and I make the most amazing and fabulous kaftans and everything that you desire for traveling. I just really love the way women carried themselves back then, you know, the Marilyn Monroes, you know. It was sexy, but there was still glamour to it, you know, and elegance and sophistication. And I feel that's what my designs are about, you know. I've also been inspired just by my continent, the continent of Africa. Growing up in Sierra Leone, it's just this beautiful, bustling colors, you know, it's so vibrant, the marketplaces, you know, Christmas, it's just, everything about it is just so energetic and it's so powerful and colorful and it just makes me really happy. And so no matter what collection I do, it always goes back to that. And so that's why you see all this colorful prints and all these bold colors, you know. I feel women wearing it, it just makes them so extremely happy, you know, and they look absolutely gorgeous in it too.
My name is S.A. Grambowski, and I am the designer and owner for S.A. Azinabor Atelier. My source of inspiration for my designs, number one, to be honest, comes from God, because I go to sleep literally and dream about my designs. And that only has to be from God. So I always give credit to Him for that. And of course, my culture is very influenced in my design. I've been designing since I was 8 years old. Even before that, my mom would tell me wild stories of me taking her fabrics and cutting them into pieces and making a dress or a skirt or pants out of her expensive African materials that she had in our home back in Nigeria when I was growing up. And I draw a lot of inspirations from where I've been, and I just try to tie them into modern design mixed with vintage designs, mixed with traditional looks, and just tie it all together in a bowl to create a true S.A. Azinabor couture piece.
Hello, my name is Daniel Mofo. I'm the founder and designer of Don Murphy, a men's luxury custom suit clothing in Dallas, Texas. Fashion is color. In the past, men were all very scared of, the colors. They were used to the blacks, the grays. But now, if you look at fashion, men wear almost bolder colors than women, You see men in red suits, men in yellow suits, men in pink suits. So for me, fashion is color.
expressive. So when I just wake up and have an idea and I create something out of that idea, it's God showing off. So that's what it is for me.
I've always been a little bit shy, but when it comes to fashion, I will wear anything and I will wear it with confidence. And so for me, that is a way of expressing myself, you know? And I feel it also is the same thing for a lot of women.
African for me means community. It means living together. If you look at Africans, they're all talking about the different countries in Africa. You know, it's all about our community. So for me, Africa means community. It means living together.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoku.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
Many thanks for joining us on the show today. This is Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa, and Udoka Njoku. I've got Wiley Scott, as always, right here, and together we'll be running the show together for 30 minutes, and we hope that you enjoy the packet that we have for you. Good morning, Wiley Scott.
Not a good morning for me. Really.
Right.
The Copa del Rey, blah, 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 is like the English Carabao Cup. And Bayern Munich somehow...
Oh, the way they lost.
Through penalties.
Yeah.
Lost that game.
It happens. It's a cup game, so you should expect anything from that one.
Doesn't make me feel better this morning, though.
You know, let me ask you something away from sports. When a single guy talks to more than 2-3 women, does it mean he likes women? And is it a crime to like women?
Well, a crime liking women, no. I'm talking to 2-3 women, no, too. Because you have to be able to. But my take is, may the good Lord in His infinite mercies find us the right woman.
Yeah.
You know,
someone in the control room needs this prayer this morning.
In the control room?
Yeah.
Wow.
He needs it. I'm not going to mention his name, but he needs it. He needs the
I won't guess. Don't worry.
No, it's fine.
Let's just do the show.
You don't need to guess. Let's talk about the Nigeria Professional Football League. Games were played yesterday in the match week 4, and here are the results. Adamawa United played out a goalless draw with Nasarawa United, and Kano Pillars defeated Plateau United 1-0, and Heartland of Owerri surprisingly made me proud yesterday, defeating Enyimba by 2-0, and Wiki Tourists defeated Rivers United, ending their run of form. Talking about Rivers United, that game ended 1-0, and Kwara and Akwa United settled for a 1-0 draw. Abia Warriors lost at home to Jigawa Golden Stars 3-1, and Rangers International beat FC Fanyuba 2-1. Dakada FC and MFM settled for a 1-0 draw. Sunshine Stars and Lobby Stars settled for a 2-0 draw, and Warri Wolves beat Katsina United by 3-0. I love the way the games went down yesterday, and the derbies actually proved themselves worthy.
I think it's good. I think we talk about the English Premier League, the Spanish La Liga, and how teams can surprise other teams. And the Nigerian Premier League is living to its billing at this point. You see a big team going to with due respect, a small team, and then they do well there. Before, it used to be a small team will beat a big team when they're at home. You know, but now in Nigerian League, you see a big team go to a small team and still win. And it's a good thing. That's a home win thing. If you are a betting person, you actually bet everybody home will win. You know, but now it's not like that. It's either it's a draw. Some teams can come from out of the states and still beat you. Yeah. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for us. I think it's a good thing for Nigerian football. I think it's a good thing for the future of football in Nigeria. So yes, yeah, it's good.
Good one. Now let's look at the table and see how the teams are placed after match week 4. We know that Rivers United still top that one with 9 points, and Rangers Internationals comes second with 9 points as well. And Kano Pillars third on the table with 8 points after 4 games. Nasarawa United comes fourth with 8 points. Looking at the bottom side, we have the likes of FC Fanyuba, Heartland of Owerri, Adamawa United, and of course Abia Warriors swimming in the relegation zone. Abia Warriors have not won any game since the league kicked off, and I wonder if they can actually survive being relegated this season. Because I get to ask the question, is there any small, what team would you call a small team in the Nigerian Professional Football League?
At this point in time, Udoka, every team for me is a small team. And what we should be looking for now is the end points, the end of the game, as in which team will represent us on the continent and do well.
Yeah.
Will these teams on top now do well on the continent? I do not know. You know, but let's just hopefully say that the teams that will come out first, third in the league will actually prove us well on the continent. I don't know. I can't say what team is good enough to be where they are now. Let's just hopefully say that even if the team that is going to do well for us on the continent is 7th on the position, I don't care. Just do us well on the continent, you know. And I don't know. Well, hopefully the league is doing well right now.
Yeah.
I am very optimistic that we will do well eventually, and that the team that comes up tops will do us well. But I'm tired of us going up against teams like Etoile du Sahel,
the Al-Ahlis of this world,
El Merreikh, and we are scared. I think it's time for us not to be scared anymore. So if we have to do well, let's do well. If FC Fanyuba brought in a Brazilian coach, he brought in Brazilian players, we still didn't do well. So I think it's about the structure now, not about the teams themselves.
Okay, I just hope that the teams get it right, and we'll have a good structure to enable the Nigerian clubs go out there on the continent and do the nation proud. Let's talk about a bit of transfer information that we have for you this morning. Timothy Fosu-Mensah has left Manchester United for Bundesliga outfit Bayer Leverkusen on a permanent deal. Now, the deal is believed to be in the region of £1.8 million, and he had only played 30 times for United since making his debut as a substitute in the 3-2 win over Arsenal in February 2016. I saw a video of Paul Pogba where he was saying his goodbyes to Fosu-Mensah, and definitely he's going to a big team. I can't say Bayer Leverkusen are bigger than Manchester United, but currently Bayer Leverkusen are doing well in the German Bundesliga.
Somebody said that Paul Pogba, under a Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola, would have been a better player. That's not another day. Fosu-Mensah, how can Manchester United let a man like that go? You know, my point is, Manchester United are obviously a very confused club. You have 7 fantastic midfielders in your team already. Nemanja Matic, Juan Mata, Paul Pogba, Bruno Fernandes, David James, and the rest of them. And you have a defense that is fantastic. Like I said earlier, Harry Maguire is money wasted, bad market. You know, I see a better player in Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I see a better player in Eric Bailly, and you spend 80 million on Harry Maguire, and you let a prospect like Fosu Mensah walk away to Bayer Leverkusen. I don't know who does that. Really, I don't know who does that, because you spend so much money on a player who is not doing so well. I would have expected that, listen, Harry Maguire, we spent 80 million on him. He is not particularly impressing us. Let Fosu Mensah stay, at least in case a Harry Maguire gets injured or something, and they let him go. But it's football, it's the management, it's the board. I don't know. Maybe I'm only a broadcaster, a sports broadcaster. Maybe I'm not a coach, I'm not a scout. I might not know what they are doing really, but I would have preferred a situation where if Fosu Mensah stays, just in case Harry Maguire gets injured. But good luck to Fosu Mensah.
All right, good luck to Fosu Mensah making that move over to Bayer Leverkusen, and we'll look forward to seeing him play in the Bundesliga, donning the jersey of the Bayer Leverkusen side. And Paul Pogba also said that he would love to, that he will be watching the German football now, the German Bundesliga as well. Maybe that's a sign that Paul Pogba also would leave Manchester United. But yes, we're keeping our fingers crossed and looking forward to see what will happen in coming days. Let's go over to the EPL and let you know that Tottenham Hotspur boss Jose Mourinho had little sympathy for the visitors, talking about Fulham, as the derby itself was a rearranged fixture, having been called off 3 hours before kickoff when originally scheduled on the 30th of December. For all the complications surrounding the fixture, the intensity from two sides at opposite ends of the table was high at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, with Fulham's 5th successive league draw a valuable point in their efforts to escape the relegation zone. Before this game, Mourinho said he didn't have any pity for Fulham, and Scott Parker, talking about the manager of Fulham. And he also came out to say that if Fulham come up with a strong squad in the game last night, that he would be very, very upset, because he knows that they are struck by COVID-19. Now they earned a draw. I'm looking forward to what Jose Mourinho will say.
Mourinho talks too much.
Yeah.
Mourinho's slogan, I was always known, is the better team lost. Every time his team loses, it's always the case of the better team lost. You know, and I want to believe, I want to say honestly, that Mourinho just talks too much. He's a loudmouth. And he went into that team before the game. He said he had no pity for Scott Parker. He knows they are going to just lose. And now they get a draw. And now the big mouth. I wonder what the big mouth is going to say now, you know. But now they got a draw, and I'm happy. I was praying fervently that Fulham would at least make something out of this game, and they did.
Yeah.
And before the game, Mourinho had made so much talk about Scott Parker, him not pitying him, the team will lose, he's going to beat them silly. It didn't happen.
Well,
so loudmouth Mourinho, shut up.
A great game for Fulham as they are fighting their way back to survival in the EPL. Of course, they don't want to get out of the EPL, going back to the Championship. And great goal from Harry Kane, but of course the equalizer from Fulham ensured that game ended in a 1-1 draw. And Tottenham Hotspur was some time ago top of the log, and today they're around the 6th position there, and they're no longer in the top 5 of the EPL. But then that's how football is in England. Today you stay top, the next day you drop to the 5th place, 6th place, or even the 7th place. And teams are in the 14th position can actually go top. Look at the likes of Manchester United, currently on top of the log, 3 points above Liverpool, and they take on Liverpool this weekend, and we'll enjoy the very best of that one. It is a Premier League, and if Man United gets to win that game, they'll go 6 points clear of Liverpool. But again, we'll go down today. Arsenal will take
Man City are
they're in the 3rd position.
They have 2 matches outstanding.
Yeah.
So I think it's still,
if they win,
game is still on.
They got a victory against Brighton yesterday.
So they have 1 more match again.
Yeah, 1 more.
And every other team have their matches already played.
So United and Liverpool will go head to head. But Crystal Palace against Arsenal, what do you see happening in that game?
I don't know. Arsenal, it's the transfer window, and players are coming back. But I don't see Arsenal having a problem against Crystal Palace, because the only player who has significantly left now would be Mesut Ozil, who was actually never part of the team, really. So I think they will have the acts together now. They don't have Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, but they've got Lacazette. And yes, I think Arsenal should be able to hold their own against Crystal Palace, who are actually struggling and trying to get their acts together too. You never can say with teams who are actually trying to get their acts together. Crystal Palace will not go down
without a fight.
Without a fight. So.
I know for Crystal Palace, for Wilfred Zaha, he has always wanted to join Arsenal. And right from the time Arsene Wenger was...
Zaha has been wanted by everybody.
Yeah. But I'm sure he will go hard against Arsenal today.
No doubt. And I really, really, really... Zaha reminds you of a player like Romelu Lukaku. You know, they are tall, they are strong, they are fast, they are witty. And I don't know. I'm trying to think of a defender who is going to be able to hold on to Zaha tonight. I can't hold him. No.
Bellerin?
I can't. Bellerin? Nah. I just... David Luiz.
I think Tierney has what it takes to hold on to...
Tierney?
Yeah. He has what it takes.
Against a tall, strong, witty Zaha? I don't think so. Let's find out. I don't know.
We'll see how that goes.
Think so.
And in the Spanish Super Cup, Real Madrid will take on Athletic Bilbao. Remember, Barcelona won through penalties yesterday, and they're waiting for who would win this game between Real Madrid and Athletic Bilbao. And I'm just hoping that Real Madrid will go all the way to the next round of that tournament. Quickly running to the Coppa Italia, we'll see Sassuolo taking on Spal, and Atalanta will be up against Cagliari. And these are cup games. You can't use the form that they have in their proper leagues, the likes of AC Milan. You see how they struggled in the Coppa Italia,
yeah.
Juventus as well. But you can't really predict cup games.
Well, I don't know. Cup games, I don't know. I've realized that in the past few years, teams in the championship, their second tier, are the ones who actually get to the finals. I don't know how they do that, you know? And Sassuolo against Spal, Atalanta against Cagliari, where are teams like AC Milan, Inter Milan, the old lady, Juventus. You know, but the good thing is these Coppa games can actually give the so-called nobody knows teams a chance to have a say, you know, and I think it's good. I think it's actually very good to realize that a Sassuolo is going to go against Spal, Atlanta against Cagliari, teams that I'm sure people at home are like, what's Spal?
But yeah, they can actually pull their own, and yesterday we saw Inter Milan get a win in their own game as well.
But we saw Bayern Munich lose to like a nobody.
All I'm looking forward to is probably the semi-finals of this competition, and I long to see the likes of Juve and Inter Milan in that one. But let's take a break and enjoy the very best of tennis, where fourth seed Hubert Hurkacz defeated American Sebastian Korda 6-3, 6-3 in the Delray Beach final. And this was the second ATP title for Hurkacz and the first since his win at Winston-Salem in 2019. Enjoy the highlights.
Hubert Hurkacz. Game and first set, Hurkacz. 6-3.
You pretty much can bring anything to your party from beginning to end. Dance for.
Game, set and match. Hurkacz. 2 sets to love. 6-3, 6-3.
Great game of tennis right there. Moving over to the Tokyo Olympics now. Team Great Britain chief, the mission Mark England, said on Wednesday that he was confident the Tokyo Olympics would go ahead this year, but athletes could expect them to be very different due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The games delayed from 2020 due to the novel coronavirus are scheduled for July 23 to the 8th of August. But then Japan has expanded its state of emergency in the Tokyo area with cases of COVID-19 rising steadily. Let's listen to Mark England, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the Tokyo 2020 Olympics holding or not.
The Prime Minister of Japan overnight has commented that the games will go ahead. The IOC are very confident in their planning for the games to go ahead, and we in turn, I mean, this is our raison d'etre, isn't it? We exist to take the teams to the games, to take the athletes to the games, and they are deserving of everything that we do and the confidence that we bring to the table to make sure that environment for them is not only the best that they can perform in, but the safest that it can possibly be. And there is nothing that we are hearing today that suggests that the games won't go ahead. So we are full steam ahead, planning to embark on Japan from the middle of July. And that is our focus of attention. We're working day and night to make sure that absolutely happens.
Well, there's still been back and forth concerning the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Should it go on? Should it not go on? And most of the organizers are optimistic that the game will still go on as planned.
Yeah, we expect the games to go on. I still think they are being self-centered, though. It's not convenient to actually plan for something and say, okay, good, we want this thing done, and then COVID-19 or NSAS or whatever ends the package. Yeah, it's kind of hard. But I think these guys should be a little humane when they come to their decisions and things like this. It's not about sports. It's not about what we love, the passion that we do. It's about people's lives. People are dying. I have seen Nigeria say, this thing will go on. Schools will resume and blah, blah, blah. And then the COVID-19 cases starts to rise. And they're like, we're thinking about it right now. And so nothing is certain right now when it comes to things like this. Will the Tokyo Olympic Games go on? I really would want, my heart wants the Olympics to go on. But my head tells me the cases are rising like every day. The day the Tokyo Olympics organizers said the games will go on, they had a 28,000 COVID-19 rise in Tokyo alone.
Yeah.
That day, they announced it. So common sense demands that, yes, we would want to do it. Our heart wants to have the Olympics. Our heart wants to have the World Cup and all that, But common sense says that the cases are rising. So we don't know if schools are going to resume. We don't know if the Tokyo Games will come. Because we're only hoping, we're optimistic that the Tokyo Games will hold. But the cases are rising like every day.
I really do not know where I stand on this one, but whatever happens, I just believe
we want it to happen.
Life matters, and we need to consider
yes.
people's lives first before hosting any games. Now, wrapping up with the NBA results, looking at the games that were played early this morning, Dallas Mavericks were winners against the Hornets, 104 to 93 points, and Detroit Pistons lost 101 to 110 to the Milwaukee Bucks. Washington Wizards versus Utah Jazz was postponed. Boston Celtics versus Orlando Magic also postponed. But the New York Knicks lost to the Brooklyn Nets 116 to 109. Minnesota Timberwolves lost to Memphis Grizzlies 118 to 107. Oklahoma City Thunders lost to the Lakers 128 to 99 points. And the Phoenix Suns versus Atlanta Hawks was also postponed. Clippers defeated the New Orleans Pelicans 111 to 106. And Sacramento Kings lost to Portland Trail Blazers 126 to 132 points. I remember watching the likes of Dennis Rodman, Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade, Shaquille O'Neal, and I think I enjoyed basketball back then compared to what I'm seeing now.
I think old school is always good school. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Fish, the guy, the three-pointer guy, and it was fun. That's not to take away the fact that it's still good basketball being played and all that. And we still got LeBron James, we still got the Steve Currys, and they still play good basketball. However, basketball was better those days for me. That is, and Michael Jordan and the rest of them. But I think too many things have disrupted the basketball is still basketball. It's still cool. But you got COVID-19, you've got NSAS and blah, blah, blah going on with it. But I'm sure, hopefully, when all of this, it will pass. When all of this passes, basketball will come back to the basketball we love and we know, and we'll enjoy it. We'll enjoy it, really.
All right.
But even at that, even with all the COVID and all that, we're still enjoying it. Sparingly, though.
All right, interesting games of basketball that went down last night, and I always look forward to the playoffs. I always look forward to the All-Star games. That is when we get to separate the men from the boys. And
when
I'm
the
just
party starts,
optimistic
the
that
small boys go home.
Yeah, they go home. Yeah. I'm optimistic and very hopeful that the Golden State Warriors will find
Don't
their
do
way.
That.
It's my
people
optimism.
People that LA Lakers.
It's my optimism. No, of course, LA Lakers, you can't bet against them. They will definitely make the playoffs. They won't fall out. I'm just praying hard for the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry's shots should lead the team into the playoffs.
And he gets injured?
Game over.
Just asking.
Nah, it's game over.
Okay.
All right, that's much you can take today on Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. Hope you enjoyed the package. Remember, you can reach us on social media, Plus TV Africa on Twitter and on Instagram. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Plus TV Africa. Well, thank you very much, Wale Scott, for joining.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you.
Keep it locked down to Plus TV Africa because big stories live here.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect am. If you no talk, dem go beat you. Na 2,500 dey pay.
I mean, how can anyone think that if I tell him to do a will, it means that I wish him dead? He himself he's a dense person.
We have a lot of clergymen dabbling into this whole thing, mystifying it, concocting it with relating it to end time and the rest of it, and then creating a lot of fear.
Yes, you know there's unemployment. Yes, you know there's insecurity, and then we should be coming down. We shouldn't be talking. Seriously, just this week, you have increased the electricity tariff again from 2 naira to 4 naira.
4 naira.
So what is that? And then when we talk, Femi Adesina tells us we're waiting. Really? When Ghana is giving free electricity to citizens? Are you for real?
There's a joke about these monkeys because they come within the estates next door and they'll carry your pot of soup from fire. So now I know why. It's because we're the ones inhabiting their space.
We're the one inhabiting their space. The monkeys are protesting, and that is what we're having.
She is the queen of the oil and gas sector in sub-Saharan Africa. Folorunsho Alakija is one of the richest women in the world. She was born in Ikorodu, Lagos in July 1951. She is one of 52 children of her late father who married 8 wives. At age 7, she traveled to the United Kingdom for her elementary education, returned to Nigeria to attend Muslim High School in Shagamu. She attended Pitman's Central College, London. Folorunsho loves fashion and business, so she studied fashion design in the UK. Nigeria beckoned drill OPL 216. She is the executive vice chairman of Famfa Oil. Folorunsho is an author, a philanthropist, and owns Rose of Sharon Foundation, which empowers widows and orphans. She briefly displaced Oprah Winfrey as the richest black woman. She she reportedly spent about £5 million on her son's destination wedding at the Belhaim Palace. And this is the mogul in 90 seconds.
The suit in Rivers State is back. Whose responsibility is it to deal with this health danger this time? Is it the governor, Wike, or is it the federal government? And to resume or not to resume for schools, what is the fate of Nigeria's education sector? Well, this is Plus Politics, and I am Marianne Okon. Nearly 4 years after the deadly black suit seized the Port Harcourt skyline and several parts of Rivers State, causing massive air pollution, there are fears that a new surge of the deadly black suit might be beginning. Now, this development follows the recent increase in activities of illegal refiners and bunkerers. Well, to discuss this, joining me live from, all of them from Rivers State, I am being joined by Chris Newsome. He is with the Stakeholder Democracy Network. Chris, it's good to have you join us. We also have Kofi Battels, who's a broadcast journalist in Rivers State. We also are being joined by Tunde Bello. He is one of the campaigners of the hashtag Stop the Suit. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Great to be here. Thanks.
All right, so I'm going to start with Tunde. Tunde, you obviously are more like a concerned Nigerian, a concerned citizen, someone who I first met talking about the suit, and I will get to every other person, but I want to find out from you, walk us through this, because people are wondering. I have a couple of people who are asking, what's this suit about, and why is it so dangerous? Tunde, you are on mute, I guess. I'd like to be able to hear you.
Okay. Basically, this suit is an air pollutant that is in the air, of course, as a result of various activities within the state. not a particular place, but mostly where you see the activities of people refining crude. Of course, not with modern technology, but with their own ways, their own process. And of course, because of the non-completion of the process in a way that you can get what you're supposed to get after you refine crude, you have this soot coming in. It's a black substance that can filter into anything, through anything. You go to your bathroom, you touch your noses, you get to your fridge, go to your clothing, and it just settles down. It's just like pills, you know. And then at the end of it all, when people ask why is it dangerous, I am not an health practitioner, but I am concerned about my environment, and I know when something is wrong with my environment because I know when I breathe fresh air, and also I know when something is wrong in my environment, my immediate environment. So we have asked questions about, okay, what is the medical implication, the health implication of all of this? And medical practitioners, people who have studied and who understand the implication of things like stuff that is cancerous. And of course, it causes respiratory problems, which is the first thing you notice about the sick. If you inhale it continuously. So basically, as a concerned citizen and one of the campaigners of Stop the Sick, we have identified all of those sources as much as we can from our own point of view. Those who have the capacity and wherewithal to do further studies have gone ahead to do it. The government, individuals who have the capacity, measuring and checking the.
I think we lost Tunde there. Let me quickly go to Chris. Let me quickly go to Chris. Chris, I want to know how you got involved with this. I mean, a lot of people are saying we thought that the suit had disappeared. We thought that it was a thing of the past. But did it really ever leave, Chris? Did it come back? Did people get some respite at some point? Or do you think that maybe the bunkering just, you know, there were more people doing illegal bunkering and then, you know, the skies became black all over again?
So it first turned up, where are we? Late 2016 in a really dramatic fashion. And obviously a whole bunch of things were going on at that stage to cause that level of pollution. I think in simple terms what happened, and that caused a whole number of us to get involved because you'd have to be blind not to, and to ignore the health risks. Then around 2018, it's like the level of pollution dropped back, but it never disappeared. And some areas of Port Harcourt continued to be hit pretty hard, but it also became more obviously seasonal in terms of reaching a level that would bother people. But unfortunately with the soot, it can still be pretty damaging when it's largely invisible. So you still have pretty disturbing numbers turning up on air quality monitors when you're looking around and you're thinking it's kind of okay. It's not like your feet and your hands are turning up black. And so we've tried to stay engaged right through. And of course, it's disappointing to see things starting to spike again now, but it's not surprising.
Kofi, you are one of the people who worked, you know, on this issue. You spoke about it on the radio. I remember back in 2017. There was a lot of conversation around this, and people were sharing stories on the radio and talking about it. How did the government react to this, and how are they still reacting to it? Is it the same reaction? Has there been any push? Has there been any action matching the reactions that are coming from people who feel that this is a real health hazard?
Thank you very much, Miranda, and great to be here. Hi to every other person on this panel. The reaction by government has been there. There's been some reaction. We've had, some movement from the River State Ministry of Environment, speaking to the media, paying surprise visits to certain sites. But the view and the feeling overall from the populace is that it falls far below the expectation. I do know that the Ministry Commissioner for Environment then, Professor Rosalind Konya, had at some point given some surprise visits to certain places. There was a plant in one of the areas in Port Harcourt where asphalt was being produced, and they accused this plant of being responsible for emission of the soot. They paid visits to certain oil installations and even the refinery and all that, but it's fallen way below expectation. When it comes to the oil and gas sector, government is a player, so some of these things may not be a surprise to some of us.
I also know that the media is very vocal in River State when it comes to issues that affect the people. At some points, I did hear that the federal government got involved, but I'm hearing that now the state government is somewhat saying that it's the federal government's job to put an end to this illegal oil miners or bunkers. So nobody's really taking responsibility to making sure that this comes to an end. What exactly are you hearing, Kofi? Because I know that at some point you were part of a group that went to Abuja to present some requests and demands concerning the suit. What's been the feedback from the federal government?
Yes, indeed. When it comes to, we look at this suit issue, it's an environmental hazard. It's also a health crisis, but it has to do with the oil and gas industry. People wake up in the morning in Port Harcourt and they're seeing black dust all over their cars. I step into my bathroom and, if I step barefoot on the floor, once I start having my bath, I see black all over the floor. So it is tied to the oil and gas industry. Now, when it comes to the oil and gas industry, you have the federal government as a major player. We have international oil companies who are participating in joint ventures with the federal government, but they have the largest share. And then at that time, the Minister for Petroleum was the president himself. So what a lot of people in the environmental sector, the environment, advocacy community, what we're advocating for was that the policing, the regulation of the oil and gas companies as far as their impact on the environment is concerned should be taken away from the Department of Petroleum Resources and should be domiciled with the National Environmental Standards Regulatory Enforcement Agency.
Has that been done? Has that been done?
Well, we've not seen the result of that on ground. The DPR still has a major say as far as the oil and gas industry is concerned, and you would expect that the company or the institution that is registering and also participating in this industry will be different from those that are enforcing this. Now, it's a case of the government is meant to solve the problem, Marianne. The federal government has the power over the oil and gas industry because it is on the exclusive list. But they are also the biggest player in the environment sector, in the oil and gas industry. Even when it comes to people talk about NLNG, they talk about Shell, a lot of people do not know the federal government is the biggest player. So how can you expect the federal government to be the judge and the jury at the same time? It's not possible.
I'm going to come back to you, Kofi. Let's talk more about the politics of this. But let me go back to Chris. Chris, you have done some research. You've worked with some researchers on this suit issue. I remember at the time I was in Port Harcourt, there was a particular machine. I don't know. It was a thing that you used to check the amount of soot that was in the atmosphere. What other tools have you been able to discover to help you monitor, if not necessarily deal with it, but at least monitor how bad the suit is and how good some days can be? Chris, can you hear me? I'm sorry, Chris, I think you can't hear me. But let me throw that question to Tunde Bello. Quickly, Tunde, are there any, because I know that you guys worked with a lot of scientists, you had papers, researchers. Can you answer that question that I asked Chris? Well, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll get back to this conversation. Of course, our guest will still be on standby. Still Plus Politics. We'll be right back.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
Well, thank you for staying with us. It's still Plus Politics on Plus TV Africa, and we're talking about the soot in River State, which has resurfaced. And I'm still being joined by Chris Newsome, Kofi Bartels, and Tunde Bello, all joining us live from River State. Now, Chris, thank you once again. I did ask a question about the researches that you've done over time and all of the scientists and researchers that you've worked with. Have you been able to come up with something, tools to check or measure how bad, the soot can be daily in the atmosphere? Are there days that, you can tell that it's lower, or the days that it's really bad? Because I remember the days that you wake up in the morning and the skies look thick black, like pitch black. It looks really dark, and you wonder if, it's going to rain, but it's not raining because, you just have soot in the air.
There's expensive tools and cheap tools. We've been able to partner with another NGO called the Centre for Environment, Human Rights and Development, trying out some more economical tools that give you a basic measure of whether the level of air pollution is nothing at all, medium, bad, or spectacularly bad. And we've had ups and downs in terms of getting that onto sort of public spaces. I expect over the next few weeks you're going to see more of those monitors sort of back fully online. They'll give a partial picture sort of across Port Harcourt, but I think really it's reached the point where the bigger players that have got better quality data, there's a need for a fresh attempt from government and to get everybody sharing data in a timely way so that people can see what's going on. And then it's great knowing whether it's very bad or not so bad, but really there's a need to go after the fundamentals in terms of the cause. You can't really just be tracking it. If you're an ordinary person, there are a limited number of things that you can do to reduce the impact on yourself.
Interesting.
The most obvious ones, I'll stop there because obviously that gets us into another question. But,
exactly. I just wanted to ask, because you talked about how expensive the tools are, is there a partnership, is there a willingness from the government of Rivers State to partner to see how they can do something on their part? Because from what Kofi has told me, it sounds more like it's the federal government's, deal. It's not necessarily the work of the states, but if the people of Rivers State are feeling the pain of this suit. Children are, checked into hospitals for upper respiratory tract infections, children who have asthma having more and more attacks. Shouldn't the Governor Wike, we know, be pushing hard on the federal government to make sure that whatever they need to do is done?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's reached that point again. So, although it's one PDP administration following another, you've had a change in state government from 2019. We've only just sort of gone through a year where over the last year the situation wasn't so dramatic, and you've only more recently got a new commissioner for the environment. But really, I think there's a need to just face up to reality. It's like this thing is having an impact on a state. So even where the state's powers are limited to act on it, it's got both a right and an obligation to follow up on this pretty vigorously now. And there are leading suspects in terms of causes, but it's going to take a collective action to get any movement on those.
Okay, Tunde, you're a concerned citizen, a father. You have told me that you've contemplated many times about taking your family away from that city. And there's so many people who have left the city because they either have kids. I remember in 2017, a person called on the radio saying that they lost a child because that child had initially had breathing issues. And then with the suit, particularly, the child got really sick and then the child died. How much push do you have left in you for the government of the state? Because again, it's the governor that you see, it's the government of Rivers State that you see. You don't see the federal government. They seem a bit far-fetched. How much push do you have left in you? How much push do the people of Rivers State have left in them? Even though I hear that they're not allowed to protest any longer concerning this suit. So what other channels do you go through to get your governor to push the federal government to do its job to protect the lives of the people in Rivers State? Okay, Kofi, maybe you'd answer that question because Tunde is disconnected.
Well, thank you very much, Marianne. I think that the people of Rivers State need to continue to be vocal in demanding for action by the state government. I think that the initial push, which was very big on social media, which was very big on, on traditional media, on radio here, television here nationally, was very good. It caused some things to happen. You had oil and gas companies like Indorama, Element Petrochemicals Limited, inviting journalists to come and look at the facilities and to see the kind of, air they were spewing out as being clean, because it was discussed on radio by you and I. And you remember when we left the studio and went straight to Indorama, we're shown around in a place where people aren't allowed to go into, even let alone the press. So Rivers people need to keep a sustained, advocacy on. The protest was there. There's nothing that stops us from protesting again.
But Kofi, how do they advocate if the government has said we don't want these protests any longer? What other tools are available for them to do that?
The government of Rivers State has not said they don't want protests any longer. I think at some point they said that they're banning protests. But we organized NSAS protests in Port Harcourt. The governor said no one should come out, and he was defied. And we came out, there were policemen everywhere. We marched from the front of the military barracks at Boricam all the way to Government House, stood there for hours, and the governor came out and addressed us, and nothing happened. He doesn't have the power to stop anyone from protesting. With respect to him as a governor of Rivers State, no governor has the power to stop any Nigerian from protesting. It's an inalienable constitutional right. So Rivers people can't come out anytime. Nigerians can come out anytime they want to protest. And if anything happens, anybody tries to be funny, I'm sure the courts are there to protect the common man. So the people of Port Harcourt and Rivers State need to continue their advocacy because these people know what is happening. The federal government has a big role to play, but the state governments also have a role to play. Now, we have the oil and gas companies. You know, the refinery here in Port Harcourt is one of the biggest culprits. You know, sometimes you see them spewing out, you know, a smoke, you know, and it affects the whole environment. We've heard of complaints from people who live around the LMA Akpajo axis. You know, they keep hearing some foul smell at night, you know, and they keep blaming the petrochemicals. The petrochemicals have denied. You go to the Ogoni axis, and the air is so bad. I mean, when you come to Port Harcourt, the air is really bad. It is really bad. People are breathing in. I mean, I personally, I can lie down in my room or my bed, and I just keep smelling diesel. It's like someone poured diesel in my room. You know, you wake up in the morning, you go out, you can see that the air is thick and it's dark. And if you fly over Port Harcourt, you see the difference. Sometimes all you need to do is take a helicopter ride from Port Harcourt to Bonny, and on the way, you're going to see a lot of artisanal refining sites. Now, what the Vice President, Emil Sibajo, did say to try and solve some of these issues was to bring the artisanal refiners mainstream. So all these guys we call in this part of the country coal fire, you know, the young men who go to the, you know, creeks to bust open pipelines, take crude oil, and they go cook and refine it locally, to bring them mainstream and to legalize and formalize this artisanal refining. But the process has not, you know, kicked off in the manner we thought it would kick off. But that is not even a solution, Miriam, because a lot of these young boys who are, you know, refining this crude oil in a local way, what we call coal fire, are just being sent by big men. You have people in the security sector, you have people in the communities, you have people in government, you have people in the oil companies who are part of this.
This leaves me with this question: how can government check itself? Because I mean, these allegations are hefty. How can the government check itself to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Unfortunately, I have to end this conversation here. Sorry, Tunde, we were having issues with your connection. But gentlemen, in closing, is there a headway anytime soon? How many more people are going to be in the ER before the state government and the federal government realizes that its responsibility is to us, the people? In a sentence each. I'll start with you, Tunde. I think you're back now. No. Okay. Well, Chris, quickly.
I'm not sure. In a sentence, I think there's need to be a little bit persistent and in a way, like Kofi said, reboot some of the public advocacy efforts and see whether both arms of government are ready to shoulder the responsibilities they've got.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Kofi?
I'm on the same page with Chris. We need to, you know, spike up the advocacy. People went to bed, you know, people got tired. And it was almost as if the people, the government and all were saying, oh, they will just get tired and forget about it. So people need to speak up, come out again, and remind them that we are not tired. And now we are not afraid. We've come out to protest against SARS and we got some results. I think we can get results with this because it's not just an environmental disaster, it's a health crisis we have on our hands. Something to be done now.
All right, well, that was more than a sentence, but thank you very much. Kofi Bartels is a broadcast journalist in Port Harcourt, River State. Chris Newsom works with the Stakeholder Democracy Network in River State. And of course, Tunde Bello is one of the campaigners with the hashtag #StopTheSuit. It's been on since 2016 and we're in 2021. The people of Rivers still cry out. Thank you, gentlemen, for speaking with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll take a short break, and when we return, safety or education, which will the government choose? Well, this is up for discussion when we return.
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
This Medan has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
We now start hearing the shoot of guns.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Contrary to popular belief, Corona is not a hoax. The virus is real. Be responsible. Wear a mask. Wash your hands with soap and water and avoid crowded places. Maintain physical distancing. Be responsible. Together, we can overcome the pandemic.
The federal government has received some advice from Afe Babalola, a senior lawyer and founder of Afe Babalola University, to reject the repeated or indefinite closure of Nigerian schools as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, he said mass closure of schools, especially universities, without consideration for schools known to be outstanding in the possession of the best facilities capable of putting the virus at bay, was not good for intellectual growth and human capital development of the country. Now, this is coming at a time when COVID-19 cases in the country has surpassed 104,000. To discuss this advice and how it should be taken, I'm being joined by Dr. Doyin Odubanjo. He is of the Science Association here in Nigeria. I didn't get that correctly, but I will get it right. Thank you, Dr. Doyin, for joining us. He's joining us from Lagos. I also am being joined by Ikechi Wogu. He's an education consultant. He's also an author and a writer. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start with you, Dr. Doyin. When it comes to COVID-19, everybody obviously wants to support and listen and follow the science. Everybody wants to make sure that they're not making any mistakes, because this is a virus that nobody has been used to. It's not like the normal viruses or the epidemics that we have faced over time. This is a totally different thing. So in terms of opening schools or schools resuming at a set date, what should we be prioritizing? The science, or the fact that our education has suffered a setback because of this pandemic?
Well, all of the above, I must say, because it's difficult to not say that education can be left behind. You know, ultimately that would be like postponing the evil day. Actually, the evil day is here with us, because if you decide, number one, that you want to keep the schools closed, and then you say on the basis of science, there are challenges already. Even people trying to work at home with children around are complaining. The children also, you must understand that this is, all this virtual learning is very inequitable. So there are not many students who can actually achieve this. Even the so-called affluent ones attending affluent schools, many people can't actually get good learning done. And that means that in the present day, you are not achieving the maximum you can get for the parents and the child. And on the long run, as we tend to say, the children are the future. It then means that when we get to that future, what does the future hold for us? So you can't say that education is not important, and we can just do the science and say we're chasing the virus alone. This is a complex matter, that is controlling the pandemic. It brings along with it several tentacles of problems you will have to tackle very carefully alongside.
Interesting. Ikechi, you are an educationist. You have a passion for education. You're one person who I know has been, talking about why we should elevate our level of education and make it better. But Afe Babalola here does have a point, doesn't he? He's saying that we are making light of our education and that there are actually schools that can handle the virus and can, make sure that the directives, the rules and the regulations are followed. They have made sure that their spaces in their classrooms, even the school environment, is COVID safe. So government does not necessarily have a right to give a blanket closure of all of these schools. Do you agree with him or not?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think preparation is the word. How ready have the schools been? Apparently, from last year when the pandemic really hit us globally, we realized that some schools were already within their virtual learning environment. So it was a lot easier for them to lash onto the change and move on. Unfortunately, there isn't a clear-cut standard that is achieved across board. So the one thing the government should have worked to achieve is standardization, a situation where you have a minimum benchmark for operations from school to school, and that was lacking. So in the case of Afe Babalola, there's a high sense of preparation, probably post pandemic 2020. He had some sufficient infrastructure to make for the spacing and all that, but that is looking and judging things from his own spectacle. It is not exactly so everywhere else. It's not the same with the government institutions. Of course, you hear the debate every day as to the readiness of ASUU to resume learning, okay, the fear of the pandemic and all that. That's because you and I would have gone through some public schools at some phase in our learning, and you would see how crammed the classrooms are. There aren't enough spaces for learning in the public institutions. So government would be judging things from the standpoint of the public institutions, while there is the other side of the divide, which is the private institution. And even at the private level, the readiness is still not the same. So it comes back to government. It behoves of government to begin to create standard pedagogical platforms for proper assessment, for proper delivery, and especially at times like this that stare us in the face, where we could say, okay, there's a minimum benchmark, and if this and this and this and this should be put in place as quickly as you can, then you should come in and begin and resume your studies. By which means we're saying that, okay, some schools could be allowed to run, being that they have all the standards, all the parameters in place, and they can run. Other schools that do not have this and this and this as basics in place should either quickly put them in place, or otherwise they will not be given room to learn. So it's just as simple as that.
I just have a quick follow-up question. When you say that government should go into those schools and check, and you know how we are in this country, and it's not I'm not in any way trying to make us look bad, but you understand how it is when you send a group of people to check certain things. We don't really expect that some people will just say be shut down because they didn't. I mean, you know what happens with the inspectorates of education, inspections in some places. There are corners that are being cut. How are we certain that the people who are allowed to continue to run have followed the set rules and guidelines without cutting corners? Because safety is the most thing that we're prioritizing right now. And how are we certain that the teachers, where they're coming from, let's not forget the children and the teachers don't live in the same place, so where they're coming from is it safe? And when they come in, are they safe? Before they leave, are they safe? How can we be sure, because of the country that we live in, that these set rules will be followed to the latter? If we must allow some schools to resume and the others don't.
We're looking at pre-visits and post-visits. So right at the gate, there's an entry point to every institution, okay? Are there clearance checks? How do we check the temperatures of the children? Are there wash basins for quick hand washing? Are we made to verify that each child has his face shield, his nose masks, his hands are washed properly, he has his hand sanitizers and all that? Those are basic checks that are carried out within the school environment. And the monitoring steps could be placed on the shoulders of the handlers of the institution. Okay, so the institutions want to remain open so that learning can take place. Now, well ahead of this, we're talking about mature students, probably. Maybe Afe Babalola is looking at the tertiary institutions, but we could cover the primary, secondary, and tertiary as well. So at the tertiary level, we ensure, like we pointed out, infrastructural availability. There is enough learning environment. Otherwise, the learning is scaled to such an extent that you could have them in bits of hand label standards. So you have 50 students per time, you have 100 students per time, depending on the size of the hall. So ratios are factored in. What's what was the UN standard? Okay, and then what is the standard now? Then when you get to well, it's not too much of the business of the learning institutions like Afe Babalola and others to begin to concern themselves with what the students were doing. I mean, these students and all of us have been attending parties, we go to churches, we go to clubs and all of that. So it's not the responsibility of the school to determine what the life of the student was before he came into school. So it's our own responsibility rather to control what happens everywhere. So if you do that at the churches and at the mosques, you maintain that control adequately, you do that on the streets, and then you can do this on at the schools as well. You discover that there's a linkage of controls, and it is an intelligent way to save the day. Meanwhile, for the inspectorate division, I'm not sure that, yeah, it is easy to say that the work has not been followed through, but what is the rate of supervision? So it's like giving an instruction. Someone is engaged to do this at the Ministry of Education. Is he doing his job? If he's not doing his job, there's a leakage, there's a failure. Well, what is done?
Well, that is the question I posed to you, but let me go to Dr. Doyin now. Doc, you are of the Academy of Sciences, and most importantly, what you push for, what you ask people to do is follow the guidelines that are put out every day. But we see people break these rules. We see people, and that's what I was trying to tell Ikechi. People are breaking these rules. People are having parties every day. Look at what happened on New Year's Day. People showed up in numbers at the beach. So how can we be certain that I mean, you can come to school and try to do what the school says, but what happens when you're away from the school? Is this really safe? Is this risky? And if we say, okay, let everybody go back to school because the government has set a date, how can we control all of these children? You know how children can be, and you know how young people can be. It's not like we're asking elderly people to go back to classes. We're talking about young people who have a mind of their own.
Right, thank you. So that speaks to even the earlier issue or question about Afe Babalola's opinion. Unfortunately, you can't quite guarantee uniform behavior, which is why you have all of the problems you have, and which is why in trying to control an epidemic or a pandemic, you make rules that have to apply to all. Unfortunately, some people will be better behaved, more compliant than others. But your weakest link is the guy or the lady that will not comply. And that's who you really worry about. And so even when one school says we can meet up with the standards, the question is they are within a society, so you have to deal with everybody equally, knowing that some people are really good at doing what they're doing, but knowing also that there's some very bad ones. And there is always cross-pollination, or there's always interaction between the good and the bad. So even in the environment where they say we have the standards, there will be an introduction of these things if the outside environment is not taken care of. So it's difficult. I was actually watching a report also on the UK and why the cases are rising still. And people would assume that it's because people are not compliant or blah, blah, but there's lockdown, there's all of those things in there. And then shockingly, they discovered that the most important thing was the one nobody was doing, which is that if you actually are sick, if you feel sick at all with any of the symptoms, or even feel sick at all, you should isolate for 10 days. And that is the actual rule that very few people are following. And that's why people keep getting infected. And that's unbelievable, that people actually feel sick and they then refuse to isolate. So these are not people who are asymptomatic, these are people who are sick, but they refuse and they still decide, I must go around, I must do everything I'm doing. And that's what you will get. So if a student, for instance, feels sick, he's going to say to himself, I can't afford to miss the lectures. It's going to be too much to catch up, blah, blah, blah. Then he's just going to walk into the lecture room. Again, if I take Panadol, my temperature might not be anything. So if you check it at the gate, I walk right through. So there are issues to be concerned about. And one of the biggest challenges with this kind of situation is that what it really takes to control it is what we know as behavioral change management. And that is one of the most difficult things to achieve. That's why everybody is running for vaccines, running for drugs, running for all kinds of things. But I keep telling them what you need is behavioral change management. You know it, but we know that it's hard work. Getting people to change their lifestyle, getting them to live differently is very hard work. And it takes quite a bit of time. And that's what we're not willing to pay attention to, or we know it's very difficult. That's why we're not going that route. And we're looking for the shortcut of the drugs and even law enforcement, But law enforcement means if you are not there every time, everywhere, they are going to cut corners. Like you said earlier, they are going to do what they are not supposed to do. So it's really challenging. And I must say that, again, if you're thinking about should the schools open and all of that, the point is other places are open. So it makes it very difficult to justify even now why you should not open the schools. Because, the question will be, how come you left everything else open? So we're in a tight corner, mostly. It's complex, no easy answers.
I guess this is a debate that's going to be ongoing until the government decides whether they should open the schools or not. But I want to thank you, gentlemen, for being part of the conversation. Ikechi Wogu is an education consultant. He joined us live from River State. And Dr. Doyin Odubanjo is of the Nigerian Academy of Sciences. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for having this conversation with me.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we want to hear what the public has to say about this situation. And of course, my take will come next.
I don't think it's safe because of the fact that the second wave is getting stronger, and with the situation of the country now, if school isn't back, I don't think students, because of the fact that the school will be crowded, and I don't think the government will have created enough measures in terms of how those students will be safe while in school. So I think the best thing is for the kids to be at home while they continue with their, e-learning for those in secondary school and primary school. Then for those in tertiary institution, let them stay at home. Because even aside from Nigeria, other countries, they're on lockdown. So why go back to school? Why allow the kids go back to school? It's no brainer. So I just feel they should just stay at home, and when it's safe, they go back to school.
I say if there is proper precaution at the school and there is a safety this thing, I think it's okay for them to resume. And there is maybe this 1 meter distance. So I didn't see what is bad in it.
I think it will be wise and it will be good for school to resume, but then we have to adhere strictly to the instructions and the guidelines given. If we can all obey that, then it's good to go, because already the children are tired of staying at home. And the more they keep staying at home, the more the education, everything goes down. So in my own opinion, it's good for school to resume, but we need to adhere strictly to the guidelines.
It's not a safe time for...
Well, it's time for my take. Well, dear Governor Wike, 4 years now, and yet the people of River State are still inhaling this dangerous suit. When will they get some respite? I mean, you promised to lead, to serve and protect them. They're asking you to do just that. Find these air polluters and bring them to justice. No more bulk passing. Do right by your people. And today we face a deadly virus, a pandemic that's strange to humankind. And in fighting to get back our normalcy, we must do all that we can to follow the rules, the guidelines. Wash your hands, wear a mask, social distance, and protect yourself, because the life you save might be yours. I am Mariana Cohn. It's been Plus Politics. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media. The conversation continues on our Twitter and, of course, on our Facebook pages with the hashtag Plus Politics. Tell us what you think about all that we have been discussing, and we would be glad to hear from you. Have a lovely evening.
We can't talk about education reform if we don't decolonize our education system.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize. Because it's just cultural. And I think it's just human nature.
They stop paying us salary. I don't like remembering it.
I am angry at Nigeria. I'm angry at this government which seems to be letting us down. I'm angry at us as a people.
In the process of struggling to free myself from his hand, he tore my pants and he raped me.
Yes, I commit offense truly.
Young girl, do you know where you are going? I say, I'm going to America. I say, oh, now so that they talk, you are going to Libya. Which America?
As it then do mark our place, some people they die now.
This is Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.